Good evening and welcome to Primetime News. I'm Sandra Ferdinando.
And I'm Naveksha Gunasekara. Here are your headlines for tonight.
8.8 million rupees in compensation claimed, citing damages during Aragalaya to an unauthorized house and office built on a Mahavali Authority land. Shashindra Rajapaka remanded until the 19th. Sagal questioned by CID for 6 hours over probe into alleged illegally acquired assets. President signs letter removing Deshaabandu as IGP. Electricity reform bill passed with amendments. Governor General of Australia Samantha Joy Mostyn arrives in Sri Lanka on 4-day official tour. Case file.
Starting off with news here at home, former State Minister Shashindra Rajapaka has been remanded until the 19th following his arrest by the Bribery Commission over an incident involving the unauthorized construction of a building and other property on land belonging to the Mahavali Authority. The case concerns compensation exceeding rupees 8.8 million allegedly claimed for damages said to have occurred during the Aragalaya.
This morning, former State Minister Shashindra Rajapaka was taken into custody by officials of the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption and was presented before Colombo Chief Magistrate Tanuja Lakmali Jayatunga at the official residence later in the day. Siabok officials stated that Shashindra Rajapaka had constructed a building and operated a political office while temporarily residing on a plot of land in the Samagipura area which belongs to the Mahavali Authority and is part of the Banvava region. The Commission pointed out that neither Rajapaka nor any other individual had been legally granted ownership of this land by the Mahavali Authority or the President through any official documentation. They further revealed that during the 2022 public uprising, the property in question was damaged and the former State Minister had submitted a signed request for compensation. However, the Office for Reparations had rejected this request. The Bribery Commission also noted that Rajapaka later informed the Office for Reparations that he had no objection to paying compensation to a person named Manoj Ekanaika, who was claimed to be the owner of the property. The Commission alleged that Rajapaka had pressured the Director General of the Mahavali Authority to formally transfer the property, despite Ekanaika having no legal ownership and had obtained a total of 8.85 million rupees in compensation in 2 separate instances. The Bribery Commission stated that this act constitutes corruption under the Bribery Act and that investigations into the incident are ongoing. Officials also mentioned that statements are to be recorded from several officers of the Office for Reparations and that the suspect will be prosecuted under the Bribery Act and the Public Property Act. They added that a certificate from an Assistant Superintendent of Police would be submitted under the Public Property Act in relation to the suspect. Accordingly, Bribery Commission officials requested the Chief Magistrate to remand the suspect until the conclusion of the case under the Public Property Act. President's counsel Anil Silva, appearing on behalf of Shashindra Rajapaka, argued that charges could not be filed against his client under either the Bribery Act or the Public Property Act. He stated that although the Bribery Commission claimed an unauthorized construction had taken place on the land, there was no legal basis to proceed under the Bribery Act. He further argued that the compensation money had been received by a person named Ekanaika and that presenting his client in court without arresting and producing Ekanaika was baseless. He requested that his client be released on bail under any condition. After considering all submissions, the Chief Magistrate rejected the bail request and ordered that the suspect be remanded until the 19th of August.
Case file.
During a media briefing convened today by the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, the party's spokesperson responded to a question regarding the arrest of Shashindra Rajapaka.
මේ වනට මේ ආරංචි මාර්ග පවසනවා මේ රාජපක්ෂවරයෙක් අත්අඩංගුවට ගත්ත කියන කතාව මොකක් සමග ඔබතුමාලා දැනුවත්ද ඒක?
අපි රත්නපුරයට ගිහිල්ලා ටිකක් වැඩිපුර සෙනග ඉන්න රැස්වීම් දෙක තුනක් කරනකොට අපි ඔක බලාපොරොත්තු වුණා. මේ ආණ්ඩුවේ ඇතැම් ක්‍රියාත්මක වීම අපේ දේශපාලන ක්‍රියාකාරකම් වල වේගයට සාපේක්ෂයි. ඒක අපි දන්නවා. ඒක අපි තේරුම් අරගෙන ඉන්නේ.
Case file. Meanwhile, the Illegal Assets Investigation Division questioned Sagal Ratnika, who served as the Chief of Staff to former President Ranil Wickremesinghe for over 6 hours today. He appeared before the Illegal Assets Investigation Division in connection with an investigation into a complaint alleging the unlawful acquisition of assets. Based on a similar complaint, former Governor Mahipala Herath also appeared before the Illegal Assets Investigation Division earlier this week and provided a statement. Police stated that extensive investigations are underway based on bank account details, asset declarations, income records and intelligence reports related to the individuals involved. An investigation is also ongoing into a private overseas trip allegedly undertaken by former President Ranil Wickremesinghe using state funds. In connection with this matter, the CID has recorded statements over the past 2 days from former Secretary to the President Samaneka Nayaka and Sandra Pereira, who served as a private secretary to the former President.
Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, speaking in Parliament, elaborated on the arrests made on bribery and corruption.
In 2024, a total of 86 individuals were arrested on bribery charges. By the 30th of June 2025, 34 individuals were arrested on bribery charges and 29 on corruption charges. Among them, 7 were politicians or former politicians arrested on corruption charges. In 2024, 58 government officials or former officials were arrested on bribery charges. By the 30th of June 2025, 28 were arrested on bribery charges and 14 on corruption charges, totaling 42. In 2024, 28 civilians were arrested on bribery charges. By the 30th of June 2025, 6 civilians were arrested on bribery charges and 3 on corruption charges, totaling 9. Relatives of politicians arrested on corruption charges as of the 30th of June 2025 is 5 in total. In 2024, 86 on bribery charges. In 2025, as of the 30th of June, 34 on bribery charges, 29 on corruption charges, and overall total is 63.
සම්පූර්ණ එකතුව 63යි.
දැන් වර්තමානයේ වේගයෙන් ඇමතිවරු සහ නිලධාරීන් මේ මහජන මුදල් බිලියන ගණන් හොරකම් කරපු මේ දේශපාලන නායකයන් සහ නිලධාරීන් අත්අඩංගුවට ගැනීම සහ පරීක්ෂණ පැවැත්වීම සිද්ධ වෙනවා. වර්තමානයේදී ඒ ආණ්ඩුවට hina වුණු කෝ විමර්ශන කෝ පරීක්ෂණ කෝ අත්අඩංගුවට ගැනීම කියලා කියපු අය දැන් ඒ හිනාව පැත්තකින් තියලා දැන් කෙඳිරි ගන්න පටන් ගන්න තිබෙනවා ගරු අග්‍රාමාත්‍යතුමියනි දේශපාලන පලි ගැනීම කරනවා කියලා. ඒ නිසා මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් ඔබතුමී දක්වන අදහස කුමක්ද?
කෙඳිරි ගාන එක මම හිතන්නේ අපිට නවත්තන්න බෑ.
I don't think we can stop the criticism. Even if they criticize, the law will still be enforced. We have no intention of taking revenge or acting against officials. But the people expected us to catch the thieves and they gave us the mandate to do so. If someone is innocent, there's no need to worry or protest. The culture has changed and it's the people who brought about that change. What we are seeing and hearing now are the final signs of that transformation. Just like the extinction of dinosaurs, this too will fade away.
එහෙමම අභාවයට යනවා.
According to the proposal passed in Parliament yesterday, President Anura Kumara Dissanayake has today approved a letter removing Deshaabandu from the post of Inspector General of Police. The President's office stated that the relevant letter has been forwarded to the Secretary to the Ministry of Public Security. Meanwhile, the Secretary to the Ministry of Public Security stated that the letter confirming Deshaabandu's removal was handed over to him this evening. The proposal to remove Deshaabandu from the post of Inspector General of Police was passed in Parliament last evening with a majority of 177 votes. MP Ramanathan Archana abstained from voting while no member of Parliament voted against the proposal. At the commencement of the debate, MP Nama Rajapaksa raised objections questioning whether such debate could be held in Parliament while several related cases were still under judicial review. However, the Speaker overruled the objection, stating that proper study had been conducted and the debate would proceed accordingly.
No member shall refer in any motion or debate to any matter which is under adjudication by the court of law or any matter on which a judicial decision is pending. The Speaker or the Chair
may direct any member who speaks in violation of rules against sub judice to resume his seat.
However, the 3 members of parliament from the SLPP, including Namal Rajapaksa, were absent from the chamber when the vote took place. Namal Rajapaksa spoke out on it today.
When we consider Deshaabandu's perspective, he is still facing legal matters. My opinion is that it is unfair to speak to even the media on pending legal matters.
Meanwhile, although opposition leader Sajith Premadasa and the Samagi Janabala Vegaya declared their support for the removal of Deshaabandu Tennakone from office, 30 MPs from the SJB and allied parties were absent during the vote. The Samagi Janabala Vegaya issued the following clarification regarding this matter at a media briefing held today.
Ranil Wickramasinghe on multiple occasions attempted to appoint Deshaabandu Tennakone as the IGP. Each time, it was Sajith Premadasa and Kabir Hashim who opposed it at the Constitutional Council. We were able to nullify his appointment by moving court. There was another dispute over the number of votes his appointment received at the Constitutional Council too. His removal today is a result of a counter decision made by the SJB leader Sajith Premadasa. We wish to remind the JVP and MPP that it should not take credit for another's efforts.
Ruling party MP Dr. Najit Indika also weighed in on the matter in parliament today.
The final vote was held last evening. What was the outcome? 177 voted in favour of it. The rest were absent. In a situation of this nature, no one could vote against it without an ounce of shame. It was a historic day that we witnessed yesterday. There is no argument on Namal Rajapaksa and his party. They expressed their stance and did not vote. But during the course of the entire debate, it was the group from the SJB who argued with us that it was them who pioneered this, questioning us as to what our contribution to remove Deshaabandu was. It was a recurring question even by the opposition leader. What happened in the end? 30 out of the 40 MPs, including those who questioned us, did not vote. It isn't only about debating. The vote is what mattered. We can accept 3 or 4 people not being present. But how can 30 out of 40, a 4/3 of the group, not vote? There were no seniors. Kabir Hashim, Dayasiri Jayasekara, Ranjit Madhuwa Bandara, Rauf Hakim, Ajit P. Pereira, Sujiva Senasinghe, Nalin Bandara, Rohana Bandara, Rohini Kaviratna, Harshana Rajakaruna and Jagat Vitana. None of them were here. Most of them were present at the debate. We need to highlight this. If it was them who did the most, even more than us, what they did was run to us with the baton, give us the baton, turn around and started running again.
Former Senior Deputy Inspector General of Police Priyantha Jayakodi was released on bail today. This was following the consideration of the facts presented before the Kandy Magistrates Court.
Former SDIG Priyantha Jayakodi was released on 2 personal bails of 200,000 rupees each and a cash bail of 10,000 rupees. Jayakodi was arrested on the 28th of July over an incident involving the circulation of false news alleging that he, along with several others, had received death threats from an organised crime gang member known as Sagal Ratnika. Jayakodi had recently said that former Minister Tiranalas, Senior DIG Lalit Patinaike and himself had been threatened with death on several occasions through phone calls and text messages from Sagal Ratnika. Investigations had earlier revealed that the phone calls in question had been made by another individual under the instructions of Priyantha Jayakodi, according to investigators.
A group of opposition political party activists from the Samagi Janabala Vegaya, Sri Lanka Pudujana Peramuna and United National Party, along with social activists, staged a protest opposite the National Youth Services Council in Maragama this afternoon. They claimed youth societies are being politicized.
The protesters gathered near the Navina public grounds earlier today before marching to the premises of the National Youth Services Council in Maharagama. Several social media activists were also present at the scene.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ කියනවා කවුද දයාසිරි බස් එකක් ඉවලා තියෙනවා ගහන්න කියලා. එහෙම ගහන්න බෑ. අපිත් ඉන්නවනේ මෙතන. අපි ඔබතුමාට මුලින් මල් ටිකක් දෙලා නෝටම් දාන්න. ඔබතුමාට මල්ලි මේක. හරි ආදරේ දෙන්නේ. නැදියන්නේ වෙන කට්ටිය නැදියන්නේ ඉන්න කිව්වද?
සටන් බීමට එකතු වෙන්න සමගිය සහ විද්වත්වේ එකට ඉන්න අපි වෙලන්න ඒ බෙදන්නේ
The group later commenced a protest opposite the National Youth Services Council demanding to meet its officials.
සුබුන්නයියේ ආදරණීය සුබුන්නයියේ උතන හැංගිලා ඉන්න බා සුබුන්නයියේ ඔයා සුබුන්නයියේ චූටි මහත්තුරු ඔක්කොම ඇවිල්ලා තියන්නේ ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ හැමතිතුමාවත් එක්ක ඇවිල්ලා උත්තර දෙන්න අපි අඳුරන මිනිස්සු.
An uneasy situation also arose with the social media activist. Meanwhile, the National Youth Services Council invited 5 representatives from the protesters for a discussion. However, the joint opposition political parties and social activists rejected the invitation and later dispersed.
Tensions flared following a statement made in Parliament by MP Dayasiri Jayasekara just as preparations were underway for a joint protest in the Maharagama town.
කරු කතානායකතුමනි මේ වෙනකොට තෙල් සංස්ථාවේ බස් එකක් 50 දෙනෙක්ගෙන් පුරෝගෙන මහරගම තියෙන උද්ඝෝෂණයට පහර දීම සඳහා අරගෙන යනවා. මම ඔබතුමාට මතක් කරනවා ඔබතුමාට ඒ බස් රථයේ අංකෙත් එක්කම ඔබතුමාට දෙන්නම්. අද ඒක තමයි ඔබතුමාට සිද්ධ වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. අද මේකට විරුද්ධව අවශ්‍ය කරන
ඇත්තටම මෙතන සිද්ධ වෙලා තියෙන්නේ තෙල් සංස්ථාවේ ඉන්න දෛනික වැටුප් ලබන සේවකයන් සහ සාමාන්‍ය අධිකාරිවරයා සමග සාකච්ඡාවක් නියමිත වෙලා තිබුණා. ඒ සාකච්ඡාව සඳහා කොළොන්නාවේ ඉඳලා දෙමටගොඩට මේ වාහනෙන් සේවකයන් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. ඇත්තටම මේක සිද්ධ වුණේ ওই ගම්මන්පිල මැතිතුමා ඇමතිවරයා හැටියට වෙච්ච ඉන්න කාලේ බඳවාගත්ත පිරිසක්. ඔවුන් දෛනික වැටුප් ලබන්නේ ඒ සේවකයන්ගේ ගැටලු ගණනාවක් තිබුණා. ඒ ගැටලු නිරාකරණය කිරීමේ සාකච්ඡාවකට ආපු එක තමයි මේ දයාසිරි මන්ත්‍රීවරයා කනගාටුව එතුමා සභාවේ නැතු වීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් ඒ සාකච්ඡාවට යෑම තමයි මේ උද්ඝෝෂණයකට පහර දීමක් හැටියට හුවා දක්වමින් ඒ මන්ත්‍රීතුමා කටයුතු කරේ. අපි ජාතික ජනබලවේගයේ ආණ්ඩුව හැටියට විපක්ෂයේ හෝ වෙන ඕනම කණ්ඩායමක හඬට කන් දෙන්න කැමති උද්ඝෝෂණ ඒ අදහස් සඳහා අවස්ථාව කිසිම විදිහකින් ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදයට බාධා කරන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ වගේම ওই වගේ තියෙන කිඳිරි ගෑම් ජාතික ජනබලවේගයේ ආණ්ඩුවට බාධාවක් හෝ බලපෑමක් නෙවෙයි.
Newsfirst with the people.
Her Excellency, the Honourable Samantha Joy Mostinesi, Governor General of Australia, arrived in Sri Lanka this afternoon for a 4-day official visit.
Samantha Joy Mostinesi, Governor-General of Australia, was welcomed at the Bandaranaike International Airport by Minister of Foreign Affairs Vijitha Herath along with other officials. During her visit, she is scheduled to hold bilateral discussions with President Anurukumara Dissanayaka and Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya. Governor-General Mostin will also observe several Australian-supported development projects in Bandaragama, Mirissa and Waligama. According to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the purpose of her visit is to explore opportunities to further strengthen bilateral cooperation and expand areas of mutual benefit between the two nations.
The amendment to the Sri Lanka Electricity Bill was passed in Parliament with amendments today without a vote being held. Following the debate on the bill, a vote was held during the second reading, where 121 members voted in favour, while 21 voted against.
Amendments to the Sri Lanka Electricity Act were proposed in 2024, initially aiming to restructure the Ceylon Electricity Board by dividing it into 12 separate companies. However, under the new amended bill, those proposals have been withdrawn. Instead, the plan now is to restructure the CEB under 5 state-owned enterprises. The bill was challenged in the Supreme Court, where the court determined that certain clauses in the original version would require a 2/3 majority in Parliament and a public referendum in order to be passed. In line with the Supreme Court's ruling, the necessary amendments were made and the revised bill was presented to Parliament today.
විනිවිදභාවයෙන් යුතු තරංකාරී වෙළඳපළක් හරහා විදුලිය ජන්‍ය සම්ප්‍රේක්ෂණය සහ බෙදා හැරීම වෙනුවෙන්
We stand for the generation, transmission and distribution of electricity through a transparent and competitive market, aiming to end the cycle of exploiting the public by creating such crises. However, our government's policy is to safeguard state ownership in the energy sector, including electricity, for the sake of national security. The amendments we have introduced reflect this commitment. The authors of the 2024 amendments themselves openly stated that the proposals to privatize power plants like Norochole Power Plant and Mana Wind Power Plant involve splitting them into 12 separate entities within the Ceylon Electricity Board under the pretext of attracting investments. We have demonstrated over the past nearly 10 months how investments can be brought in without selling the people's assets. This amendment is aimed at preventing the sale of public property. Another point, Honourable Speaker, is the institution called the NEAC mentioned in the 2024 bill. This is a council appointed by the Minister which will provide directives exclusively for the electricity sector. Establishing yet another separate body solely for the electricity sector will create unnecessary complexity. We look forward to establishing a broad national energy planning institution that integrates the entire energy sector in the near future. We expect this amendment to strengthen the electricity sector by transforming the 4 main institutions created through this amendment into modern, empowered entities.
නවීන ශක්තිමත් ආයතන බවට පත් කිරීමෙන්
UNP හදපු මහවැලි ජලවිදුලි බලාගාර
The Mahawali hydroelectric power plants built by the UNP have always remained 100% under state ownership as stipulated in the 2024 bill. This has not changed and no one has attempted to sell them. However, under the same act, ownership of power plants such as Norochole, West Coast, diesel, thermal and renewable plants was allowed to be partially transferred either to local or foreign investors or offered through the stock market at certain times. The 2024 bill did not aim to privatize these assets but allowed flexibility to attract necessary investments when needed. This reversal, the original intent of the 2024 bill, is completely lost. The Asian Development Bank, the International Finance Corporation of the World Bank Group and the JICA have all formally advised the government against these changes, presenting 4 main reasons. They warned that this would have a negative impact on economic growth. All these entities opposed today's amendments to the Act. Yet, ignoring their advice, the government has pushed this through Parliament, driving Sri Lanka's electricity sector into a massive setback. Isn't that right? This amendment blocks the country's potential for economic growth and, if as a result, creating inefficient agencies leads to higher costs, who ultimately bears these costs through increased tariffs.
ඒ කොස්ට් එක ටැරිෆ් එක හරහා කාටද යන්නේ?
ඔබ තමුන්නාන්සලා විරුද්ධ පක්ෂයේ හිටපු ඉන්න කාලෙත්
Even when you were in the opposition and when we were in the opposition, both parties had their uses and rules. If we opposed something while in the opposition, it was because it was harmful to the country. Our opposition to the Uma Oil project was based on solid grounds. It's not that you don't know this. It was a trap by the Rajapaksas. Ultimately, the Supreme Court ruled against the government, reporting that around 13,000 houses are damaged by cracks on their walls with heavy fines imposed and more still to be paid. Around 7,500 water springs went dry. We opposed not development itself but disaster. That is why our opposition was founded on principle. Now, some opposition parties oppose these amendments because they want to properly regulate and develop through correct laws. They recognize the country has fallen into deep trouble and that pain is visible here today. During your 76 years in power, fewer megawatts were developed than what we will manage during our tenure. Strategic changes have been made to achieve this. Real transformation is necessary to move into a new era, and that is what we are doing. There are a few in the opposition who supported this back then. We are thankful to them as well.
Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya made a statement in Parliament today regarding the Supreme Sat satellite launched into orbit with the involvement of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa's son Rohita Rajapaksa. This was in response to a question posed by SLPP MP D.V. Chanaka.
The amount invested in the communications satellite launched by Supreme Sat, a subsidiary of Supreme Global Holdings, dates back to the 2011-2012 period. Supreme Sat entered into an agreement with the Board of Investment of Sri Lanka on the 23rd of May 2012. Between 2013 and 2014, the company invested 12,104,936 rupees in the communications satellite. According to the information in the company's investment application, the government of Sri Lanka has not invested any money in this project. This was carried out as a domestic market-focused project under Section 17 of the Board of Investment Act, with a total investment of 1,828 million rupees. On the 13th of May 2012, Supreme Sat Private Limited signed an agreement with the Board of Investment for a project aimed at providing telecommunications and broadcasting facilities to subscribers through a facility at the industrial zone in Kandy, where a satellite unit would be installed and operated. According to BOI records, Supreme Sat Limited has generated the following financial benefits to Sri Lanka. In 2015 to 2016, 19,617 million rupees. In 2016 to 2017, 28,133 million rupees. In 2017 to 2018, 29,106 million rupees. In 2018 to 2019, 34,169 million rupees. In 2019 to 2020, 42,960 million rupees. In 2020 to 2021, 62,545 million rupees. In 2021 to 2022, 87,789 million rupees. And in the first 6 months of 2023 alone, the company recorded 39,590 million rupees in revenue.
For the first time, you responded today to one of the much-spoken but ill-fated investment in Sri Lanka. I think this satellite is mostly known in Sri Lanka as Chichi's rocket than Supreme Sat. That is why it was said that $300 million were invested in Sri Lanka and it disappeared. The day I asked the question, Bimal Ratnayaka said from the other side that it had disappeared. But now the Prime Minister herself is saying that nothing like that has happened and not a single rupee has been invested by Sri Lanka. And on the other hand, every year, 20,000 million rupees and more income has been generated for the country.
I
provided the answer based on the information I received from the BOI. I did not go to the extent of coming to a conclusion about it and expressing my opinion on whether it is big or small. I'm giving this answer based on the information that the BOI has provided so far. I think it was discussed in society for different reasons. If you ask a separate question about that, I can answer it.
Minister Anura Tilaka yesterday presented a list to Parliament which included names of relatives of ministers and MPs who had utilized the President's fund for overseas education. Following this, MP Shashindra Rajapaka, whose name was mentioned in the list, responded, leading to a tense situation in Parliament today.
At the time, my father was in the opposition and not representing the government, obtained the grant through the proper procedure based on the required qualifications. That scholarship was awarded, and in the same year, the minister himself announced that over 73 million rupees had been allocated for scholarships. I received a scholarship worth 500,000 rupees, yet only my name has been mentioned. The names of those who received scholarships worth 70 million rupees have not been disclosed. Lalit Athulat Mudali, the founder of the Mahapula Scholarship, had also been granted a similar scholarship. Not only that, but even Rohana Vijayveera, the founder of your party, had also received a state scholarship when he went to Russia. Therefore, Honourable Speaker, this is nothing but an ongoing smear campaign.
Even if someone tries to drag our party's founder into this for their own defence, there is nothing we can do about it. The scholarship received by Comrade Rohana Vijayveera was not funded by the people of Sri Lanka. It was one among a set of scholarships provided by the Soviet Communist Party to the Communist Party of Sri Lanka. Furthermore, Comrade Rohana did not come from a privileged family, nor was he distributing public funds at his own discretion. Therefore, I kindly request that you answer for your own matters without unnecessarily involving the founder of our party. We strongly reject such attempts with contempt.
In particular, when the opportunity is given for the government side to clarify matters, the same opportunity should be extended to the opposition.
MP Rajakarna was given the opportunity to speak after he requested it. However, the matters he raised were unrelated and is entirely incorrect. Honourable Leader of the Opposition, when Parliamentarian Rajakarna inquired about this matter in the morning, I responded in good faith. The content was to be read as it was. Therefore, the way he acted was inappropriate.
US President Donald Trump has issued an executive order today hitting India with additional 25% tariff over its purchases of Russian oil. That will raise the total tariff on Indian imports to the United States to 50%.
The executive order stated that the new rate shall be effective with respect to goods entered for consumption or withdrawn from warehouse for consumption on or after 12:01 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time 21 days after the date of this order. The increase follows US President Donald Trump's announcement that he would very substantially raise tariffs on India within 24 hours, stating that while India plans to offer the US zero tariffs under a trade deal, it would still be insufficient due to India's continued purchase of Russian oil.
In the sharpest statement since Trump announced a 25% tariff on Indian goods from the 7th of August, along with an unspecified penalty for its defense and energy imports from Russia, New Delhi hit back on Monday, saying the targeting of India was unjustified and unreasonable, and the country would take all necessary measures to safeguard its national interests and economic security. On Tuesday, Russia said sovereign countries have the right to select their partners in trade and economic cooperation based on their interests. Trump had warned that he would raise the tariff on India substantially, saying that India was not only buying massive amounts of Russian oil, but also selling it on the open market for big profits.
What people don't like to say about India, they're the highest tariff nation. They have the highest tariff of anybody. We do very, very little business with India because their tariffs are so high. So India has not been a good trading partner because they do a lot of business with us, but we don't do business with them. So we settled on 25%, but I think I'm going to raise that very substantially over the next 24 hours because they're buying Russian oil, they're fueling the war machine, and if they're going to do that, then I'm not going to be happy. The sticking point with India is that tariffs are too high. Now, I will say this. India went from the highest tariffs ever. They will give us zero tariffs. And they're going to let us go in. But that's not good enough because of what they're doing with oil. Not good.
Indian National Security Advisor Ajit Doval is in Russia this week to discuss defense and security matters. Doval is expected to hold talks with senior Russian officials and is likely to discuss the purchase of more S-400 air defense missile systems. India currently has 3 S-400 systems, part of a larger order of 5 purchased from Russia. The systems were put to use during the country's brief military confrontation with Pakistan in May. Doval's visit, though pre-planned, has taken on greater significance following US President Donald Trump's criticism of India's oil imports from Russia. US envoy Steve Witkoff arrived in Moscow on a last-minute mission to seek a breakthrough in the Ukraine war, 2 days before the expiry of a deadline set by President Donald Trump for Russia to agree to peace or face new sanctions. Russian President Vladimir Putin met with US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff at the Kremlin. This marks the 5th time the US representative has visited Russia this year. Last month, the US President Donald Trump threatened sanctions on Moscow if a ceasefire was not reached with Kiev within 50 days, later reducing it to just 10. It came despite the White House and even Trump himself suggesting that they may have no effect due to the lack of trade. Diplomatic exchanges between Moscow and Washington resumed in February, with a number of leaders' phone calls and meetings between delegations taking place. As global trade tensions intensify, consumers across major economies are feeling the pinch of rising prices, driven in part of sweeping tariff policies that are reshaping the cost of everyday goods. In the United States, the reintroduction of broad-based tariffs under the current administration has led to increased prices on imported electronics, food items and household goods. In Europe, similar trends are emerging.
US President Donald Trump said that the United States would initially impose a small tariff on pharmaceutical imports before raising it to 150% within 18 months and eventually to 250% in a move aimed at boosting domestic production. He did not specify the initial tariff rate, though he previously suggested in February that pharmaceutical and semiconductor tariffs would start at 25% or higher, with substantial increases over the course of a year. Last month, he said tariffs on pharmaceutical imports could rise as high as 200%.
US President Donald Trump told CNBC's Squawk Box on Tuesday that planned tariffs on pharmaceuticals imported into the US could eventually reach up to 250%, the highest rate he has threatened so far. The president has repeatedly threatened and then changed course on tariff proposals, so there's no guarantee he will eventually set pharmaceutical tariffs at the 250% rate. In early July, Trump had threatened 200% tariffs on pharmaceuticals.
Well, I'll go into pharmaceuticals. Yeah. They make a fortune with pharmaceuticals, and they make our pharmaceuticals in China and Ireland and everything else. And within the next week or so, we're going to be announcing tariffs on specifically. This is this is a separate class than the 15% tariffs on sort of everything. These are excluded classes, I call them. I like to call them excluded, like steel, aluminum, etc.
Right, the
well,
232.
We're going to be announcing on semiconductors and chips, which is a separate category, because we want them made in the United States. And by the way, they're being made in the United States. You know, we have the biggest in the world, as you know, from Taiwan is coming over and spending $300 billion in Arizona, building the biggest plant in the world for chips and semiconductors. But on pharmaceuticals, we'll be putting a initially small tariff on pharmaceuticals. But in 1 year, 1.5 years maximum, it's going to go to 150%, and then it's going to go to 250%, because we want pharmaceuticals made in our country. And that's not the CHIPS Act like Biden did, because he didn't know what he was doing, where they gave billions of dollars to companies that had more money than they knew what to do with.
The Trump administration in April initiated a so-called Section 232 investigation on pharmaceutical products. That's a legal authority that allows the Secretary of Commerce to investigate the impact of imports on national security. The tariffs are the president's bid to incentivize drug companies to move manufacturing operations to the US at a time when domestic drug production has shrunk dramatically over the last few decades. Over the last 6 months, companies like Eli Lilly and Johnson & Johnson have announced fresh US investments to build goodwill with the president.
WhatsApp has taken down 6.8 million accounts linked to scammers targeting people around the world in the first half of this year. Many were tied to scam centers run by organized criminals in Southeast Asia, who often use forced labor in their operations.
Meta said that WhatsApp deleted over 6.8 million accounts linked to scams as WhatsApp rolled out new anti-scam measures to alert users to potential fraudulent activity, such as a user being added to a group chat by someone not in their contacts list. The crackdown targets an increasingly common tactic in which criminals hijack WhatsApp accounts or add users to group chats promoting fake investment schemes and other scams. In one case, WhatsApp worked with Meta and ChatGPT developer OpenAI to disrupt scams linked to a Cambodian criminal group that offered cash for likes on social media posts to promote a fake rent-a-scooter pyramid scheme. It said that scammers had used ChatGPT to create the instructions issued to potential victims. Scam centers that cheat people out of billions of dollars are known to operate from Southeast Asian countries like Myanmar, Cambodia and Thailand. These centers are also known to recruit people who are then forced to carry out the scams. In Singapore, for example, users have also been told by police to be wary of unusual requests they receive on messaging apps.
A conclave organized by the American Chamber of Commerce in Sri Lanka together with the Rotary Club of Colombo Port City took place in Colombo today.
The American Chamber of Commerce in Sri Lanka, or the AmCham Sri Lanka, and the Rotary Club of Colombo Port City convened over 50 business leaders, policymakers and entrepreneurs today for a high-impact conclave focused on transforming Sri Lanka's SME landscape. The conclave was titled Empowering Sri Lanka's SMEs, Build, Scale and Thrive.
This year, when we had a governor who is 37 years in banking industry and a veteran who came in, he said, I think we need to look at SME development because that's where his skill is. You know, there are 72 Rotary clubs across the country and each of them have partnered the best chambers and identified what are the issues that a typical SME has and see as to how Rotary can support. The program that Rotary does is that they look at both ends. Now, we are not going to just do some capacity development, but what we also do is that we focus on asking how Rotary can support each of these SMEs and see how we can help them grow their business. So just like what the governor was saying, is that in our own little way, we are trying to see as to how we can support the government agenda, because end of the day, we have a huge challenge in our hand, because by end of next year, we need to have at least 9 billion in our foreign reserves, and the year after we need to have 13 billion. And if you don't have that, what happens is we go into another default in the years to come. So that's why tying up with the ICTA, which we did about 2 weeks back, and today we are tied up with AmCham. Likewise, we are looking at large, strong chambers and seeing as to how we can get ourselves together.
The meeting focused on transforming the small and medium enterprises or SME landscape in Sri Lanka through a curated series of plenaries, fireside chats and technical clinics aimed at providing real-world strategies for accessing finance, navigating regulation and unlocking opportunities for scale.
The National Development Bank PLC has been recognized as Sri Lanka's best digital bank for SMEs by Euromoney.
We are truly honored to be recognized as Sri Lanka's best digital bank for SMEs by Euromoney. This award is not just a reflection of our digital capabilities, but a powerful endorsement of our vision to transform SME banking in Sri Lanka. At NDB, we believe that small and medium enterprises are the backbone of our economy, and empowering them with the right digital tools is essential for national progress. Through platforms like Newsfirst and TradeLink, we have gone beyond traditional banking to create a digital ecosystem that supports SMEs at every stage of their journey, from managing daily operations to accessing working capital and building resilient supply chains. These innovations are designed with local realities in mind, yet benchmarked to global standards. This recognition reinforces our commitment to continuous innovation and our role as a trusted partner in the entrepreneurial journey. We remain dedicated to enabling Sri Lanka's SMEs to be more agile, competitive, and future-ready in an increasingly digital world.
A rising motocross star of Sri Lankan descent is making headlines in Japan. Her name is Pereira Hitomi and she is currently visiting Sri Lanka.
At just 16 years old, Pereira Hitomi is showcasing exceptional talent in Japan's premier motocross championship, the All Japan Motocross Championship. Her father is Sri Lankan and her mother is Japanese. The eldest of 3 siblings, Hitomi has shown a passion for motocross since childhood. She began competing in motocross races at the age of 7.
We introduced her to motocross from a young age in Japan. Initially, I took her to watch races, and that's when she expressed her desire to ride. We noticed her natural talent early on and have been supporting her journey ever since. Her first goal is to become the ladies champion in the All Japan Championship.
Currently ranked 9th in the 2025 All Japan Motocross Championship standings, Hitomi is also the second youngest competitor in the tournament. She previously competed in the 2015 Fox Hill Motor Racing and Motocross Championship in Sri Lanka.
Ayubowan, Mama Japan is Koreanawa. Mama Motocross wa Poli Kare Izan Asai. Mama Japan Motocross Championship Eka Padinawa. Lanka race velata sahabagi venna asa aven innawa. Lanka wa tiena track wala padinawa eka mata lok experience ekak. Nama venimase visa visheka All Japan Motocross Championship eka tiena wa mama Lanka we asai.
And with that, you wrap up news for tonight.
Thank you for watching. Good night.